And here with us now, Republican Governor of Wisconsin, Governor Scott Walker. Very good to have you on board this morning. Let's first talk about what's going on in your state, because you had to expand the drought emergency. A lot of trouble there.
For our state, we've done it to all 72 counties. 23 of our counties already in the southern part of the state qualify for federal designation. And it's a combination of heat with drought, which is a bad mix for both, because it's not just the lack of water. It's pounding day after day of above 90, in many cases over 100 degrees.
Man. You're having trouble with your voice. Is that still from your election night victory?
You know, it's actually more allergies. Being out in the farms last week in the fields, I literally get a little bit of allergy off of that. So.
But what a big win. We haven't talked to you since then. That was a huge win.
More votes than the last time, and more votes in total, and we actually won by a bigger margin. So it would be nice to win no matter what the circumstances, but it's nice to be affirmed with a large
So how are things going in Wisconsin now? A couple of years ago, obviously, it was a state under siege politically. Where do you sit now?
We're in good shape. Actually, we come and talk to the bond rating agencies today. According to the Pew study, we're the only pension system in the country that's fully funded. We don't have the kind of liabilities, for example, like our neighbor to the south, Illinois, has. We've got a budget for the first time in 2 consecutive years. We put money in the rainy day fund. We've got a budget surplus. Doesn't mean we don't have challenges ahead. We certainly do with both the economy and the budget, but we're a lot better off than other states.
Yeah, no, I just think it's a remarkable achievement out there. And we were talking about earlier about the state of the Republican Party, and as a conservative, as a Republican, you'd much rather defend on a policy ground what he's doing as opposed to the crazy statements of Newt Gingrich or Michelle Bachmann and all of that stuff. It's a remarkable achievement. Look at a state like California. $800 billion in unfunded pension liabilities. It's a huge crisis in the country, one of the few governors in the country to take it on and to succeed, and this is what Republicans should be talking about.
Republicans should
be fighting on.
Well, that's an interesting
statements.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because what we found is the last month or so, a lot of the voters that would come to me would say, I voted for your opponent 2 years ago, or I'm a Democrat, but I'm voting for you. And one of the biggest reasons that we got those independent swing voters was people said, we appreciate somebody willing to take a chance at sticking their neck out to do something. And I think obviously that's something we could use more at the national level as well.
Does that frustrate you that Mitt Romney still hasn't found his voice and is not sticking his neck out?
Well, I certainly hope when they get to the convention that that'll be kind of the new splash out there, because I think he's got the capacity to. I mean, look at his background in business, at the Olympics, as a governor. I mean, I think of the Big Dig. A lot of times they talk about health care, but the Big Dig, that's a good example where he came in, rolled up the sleeves and said, I'm taking control. I'd like to see him do that.
Yeah, he's not doing that right now in the campaign.
So, Governor...
No, I don't think he is. I mean, I think there's a lot of caution. I think the mistake that they've made is this feeling like it can just be a referendum on the president. And certainly a part of it for any incumbent's got to be a referendum on do you like or dislike not just the president but his policies. And on the policies, the economy's failing. But there's got to be something more than that. People won't just vote somebody out. They want to vote somebody in.
Right.
The two have to go hand in hand. He's still going to make the case, which I think he can do at the convention.
Your buddy Ed Rendell is something to the conversation. Go ahead, Ed.
Hi, Governor. How are you?
Good morning. I just missed you at the Union League Club in Philadelphia a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we were back to back. I thought one of the reasons you did so well on the recall was because you went before the voters of Wisconsin and said you made some mistakes. I think politicians don't do that enough. Can you tell our audience who may not be familiar with exactly what you said, how you said it and what impact you thought that had?
No, I think, Governor, that's a great point. In fact, actually, the first time I said it, I think, was on the show talking to you, Mika, where you asking, Joe, you tried to warn me not to answer the question, but you said, did you learn anything? And I said, yeah. I mean, we learned more than anything that it's important to have results, and I'm not going to avoid trying to fix things, but it's also important to talk about the process. I was so eager to fix things, I didn't talk about it. Most politicians, including a lot in Washington, talk about it and never fix it. I've got to do both in the future, and we talked about, after we mentioned it first, per your question, I mentioned that repeatedly to the voters, that we had learned from that, but we learned by learning that we need to do more to talk and bring people into the mix. It wasn't going to be an excuse for not taking action. The two can go hand in hand.
And as to collective bargaining, I found from my career and looking at others that a good public official who makes his case to the people effectively can win collective bargaining. The collective bargaining wasn't the problem. It was weak-kneed politicians who gave into the unions that were the problem. Don't you think that you sort of overdid it a little bit on collective bargaining? I think it has a place, and you can make your case to the people and win. It's happened in a lot of places.
Well, you're right, and I don't think you're going to, right, people have asked, is this going to be replicated around the country? I think bits and pieces of it. Every state, every city is a little bit different, so nobody's going to do exactly what we did in Wisconsin or exactly what the treasurer and the governor did in Rhode Island, for example, or other states. But I think increasingly, not only for governors, but for mayors, there's such a tremendous unfunded liability. I was just talking in the green room with David Wicker, and obviously he's got that concern not just in the federal government, but across the country. All the states that have huge pension liabilities, all the cities and other local governments that do, that's as big as the national federal debt problem, and we've got to take that on. And I think Governor Rendell's right. If you make the case, if you point out, hey, this is not an attack on public workers, this is just saying, in many cases, we can sustain more public workers by getting those finances under control.
What it is what you talked about in terms of what you learned along the way. In politics, is basically telling the truth when you're talking to people.
Yeah, exactly. Tell the truth. Don't hedge. Tell people. I always talk about what we did in '96 on Medicare,
right?
Where everybody ran away from the Medicare cuts. That's all I talked about. At the end of the year, I got a call from Glenn Bolger, who had polled 100 races, and he asked, "What are you doing talking to seniors? What are you saying to seniors?" And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because you got the highest approval rating among senior citizens of all the people we're polling," and I made the entire campaign a referendum on why we had to scale back the rate of growth in Medicare. You tell voters the truth, they'll take it.
Well, in particular, and I think a lot of politicians in both parties in Washington have that fear of telling the truth. But I think, it's interesting. I talked a lot in my campaign about my children, they're not children anymore. Matt's a 18-year-old, Alex is soon to be 17.
They're still babies, too.
Yeah, they're still my kids. But I talked about, people say, why did you do what you did? I said, simple, Matt and Alex. For every kid and grandkid like them in my state, and certainly for every kid and grandkid across America, I think even when you talk about the federal budget, you talk about entitlements, you talk about issues like that, I think even seniors, what do they care about more than anything? They care about their grandkids.
No doubt. We've got to go. But Mark Halpern, do you have a quick question?
Well, I was just wondering, your criticism today of the Governor Romney's campaign, not you weren't over the top, you said you'd like him to do more. When you say stuff like that publicly, as you have in the past, do you hear from the Romney campaign?
I hear from some either directly or indirectly.
What did they say?
Well, I mean, the bottom line is they've got to plan a good campaign. And what I point out to him is I'm not attacking him. I think he's got the capacity to do it. I just wish he'd do it more. When he was with Paul Ryan and I in Janesville a few weeks ago, he was great on that bus tour. I thought he was great. He relates to people well. He relates to small business owners well. I'd like to see more of that. I think they need to get him in a bus, get him around in swing states, and not let him out until November 6th. Because I think he performs the best on the road. In fact, I'd get rid of the podium. I'd give him a mic, get him right in the crowd, and defy all the stereotypes that's built about him in the media, because I think he can relate. I just think in many ways they pulled him back and just want it to be a referendum on the president. I don't think that's enough.
All right, Governor Scott Walker, thank you so much.